Coming to you from the foot of the majestic Rocky Mountains, Denver, Colorado, it's the SavageCast, a Savage Worlds podcast brought to you by the Rocky Mountain Savages. Here are your hosts, Chris Savage Mummy Fox and Christopher Savage Bull Landauer.
Awesome. Howdy, all you wild cards out there. We are at episode 42 of the
welcome
SavageCast.
to 42.
The answer to the universe and life.
And universe, yes, and everything.
That's
so,
right.
yes. Apparently, everyone was wrong. It wasn't all the previous guesses. It was Big Apple Sewer Samurai as the answer to life, universe, and everything. So we are joined today by Alb, who is a Savage Worlds Adventure Guild publisher, and we're going to be talking about his company's Big Apple Sewer Samurai, which just released on Drive-Thru RPG, which is pretty exciting. But before we get to that awesomeness, Fox and I are going to run down the last happenings in like the last 2 weeks of the Savage news. So lots of cool stuff. So most recently, in a long string of really cool audiobooks, if you haven't gotten on this train yet, they're pretty cool. Sound Booth Theater, they are an audiobook publishing company that has been working their way through a bunch of Savage Worlds properties, and a lot of stuff for Necessary Evil, which is pretty cool. They're relatively inexpensive, like $2.
Yep, $2 a piece, and they're pumping those out.
Yeah, they're really high quality. We've had the cast and the producers from them on. So if you check our YouTube, the Pinnacle YouTube for Peg Inc., you can meet the Sound Booth Theater crew and kind of see what they look like. They're fun people, and I think we're going to try to get them on some actual plays. We'll see. That'd be fun.
Awesome. That'd be great.
Right. The current one out is another Necessary Evil book, Malcontents. And that one's available now for $2. So if you want something to entertain you on your drive home, or now that we're all like getting back to real life, right? Like leaving the house, getting vitamin D from the sun again.
Right.
That's the thing is like considering how not a lot I've been driving this last year, I haven't kept up on a lot of my podcasts. So I have to binge Sound Like Crows and all that kind of stuff.
Thank goodness I have a job where that's what I listen to all day. As I listen to podcasts. So other news from the last 2 weeks is, again, on the VTT front.
A lot of stuff.
So Blood Drive is on Steam and Fantasy Grounds. So if you're going to play Blood Drive, they put some more pawns and tokens on to roll 20 for Deadlands. You got that. You've got the Deadlands Companion added for Foundry.
Yes, that's a nice big beefy package. Then there's like a ton of customization, a lot of modules that are like already scripted out macros. So the Deadlands Weird West one, but it's even better now because the companion's been smushed into that big beefy companion. Oh, and then Blood Drive also got the do-it-yourself VTTS. That's for all you folks who want to do it yourself.
Yeah, you could do that. So that those are the big VTT.
Well, then if you want to learn stuff, so like the Fantasy Grounds has been doing this really cool thing called Fantasy Grounds College. So if you haven't jumped on the VTT bandwagon yet, you can learn. So they're like free classes that are online. You can sign up through Fantasy Grounds College to learn how to use Savage Worlds on the Fantasy Grounds platform. And then they've also do stuff like I think they're also doing actual plays. So you can like watch their actual plays. And then just this last week, Jody and Amy from PEG were both on the Fantasy Grounds College Symposium. And if you listened carefully to that, Jody dropped what the next crowdfunder is going to be for Savage Worlds. So I won't say it.
Oh, I missed it.
Right. So
That's evil.
It is evil, but you got to go check it out. So you check out the Fantasy Grounds College Symposium on the PEG News on peginc.com. You can get the link. And if you listen to that somewhere in that symposium, it was a really good chat. I mean, I wish they had their faces so you could see Jody and Amy and the folks from Fantasy Grounds. But they were kind of demoing how Fantasy Grounds works in the background, which was cool.
Right now, I want to know, have you had a chance to listen to Dungeons of Discordia?
Yeah, I actually watched it. So
that's Cheyenne Wright. great artist, award-winning artist for Pinnacle. He's doing a game using the Pathfinder rules. And he's got a Twitch channel, Dice Tyrants. Have not had a chance to watch it yet, but
it's a really cool cast. So like the cast is all new to me, and they're really charismatic. They're really good players, and of course Cheyenne is an excellent GM. So that one's actually really cool. So that's Dungeons of Discordia, and so yeah, I think he's using the Savage Pathfinder rules, but I don't know if his own setting is in Galarian or not.
Okay. So he may be doing his own setting. And then anybody interested in Deadlands horror at Headstone Hill that came with the big box, there's an actual play out there, Todd Moonbounce, on his YouTube channel. So if you're interested in checking that out, obviously spoilers.
There's a ton.
Right?
There's a ton of new action
spoilers
plays
on that one, but. And then he does new. Oh, I just saw this. He does new episodes on Thursday nights on Twitch.
Yes. So yeah, they're pretty cool. I've seen a couple episodes of that. They're good. There's a lot of goodness. There's a lot of good Savage Worlds actual plays. So like if anybody out there is interested in doing a Savage Worlds actual play, there is a Savage Worlds category now on Twitch.
Woohoo!
So like you can upload to it, and we'll build that out. So consider using the Savage Worlds actual. Because I think some of the games I saw that were actually Savage Worlds games were still getting run under either like role playing general or like D&D. That's Savage Worlds. Put it in the Savage Worlds category.
No. Get those in the right category.
Yes. Also from Fantasy Grounds, Eric Lamoureux is going to be on Fantasy Ground this Friday. He's the guy who did Wise Guys. Really cool dude. We met on the Savage Cruise last year.
Excellent setting.
Right? I mean, and that. So yeah, he was on. He did an interview recently, and then Fantasy Ground 5. So that was check that out. Good stuff there from Eric. And then let's see, anything else. Virtual Table Talk. So that's a new show that Peg's putting out. We've got basically Amy who's the project manager, developer for like all of the VTT stuff that's going on that has to be done in-house from Peg. And then it'll be her and then other various guests from the VTT sphere, just either talking about new releases, talking about the process. It's kind of, the new Wild West on VTT. And there's just been such rapid growth and expansion to Pinnacle for supporting that. And like some companies, Pinnacle does the work and then, ports over to their system. Other companies do all of it themselves. And so that's kind of, and there's different pricing schemes. And so there's a whole lot in the VTT sphere. And so hopefully if you have questions on how that works and what's upcoming and all the good, interesting behind the scenes stuff, there's like a whole slew of people who are working on VTT stuff in-house and then also at the various companies. So that's check out, it'll be on the Peg Twitch, which is called Virtual Table Talk. And before
actually going to be really cool.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of cool. That's a lot of neat stuff. Like I think we were talking in pre-show with Alb about some of us are very old school. Like I'll roll dice on my desk and just you trust me, right?
Me. Yeah.
But I mean,
no, Landauer. Let's not say we're old school. We're minimalistic.
Yep. Yes.
Minimalists.
We don't need like all those fancy things to play. It's fun, but it's still fancy things.
Yes.
Yeah. Anybody who's seen my garage will know I'm not a minimalist. But other than that, and also I think one of the cool things is there's just the ability to expand out.
Right.
Like a lot of these platforms offer tools like you can just use the dice rolling or you can use it for, the maps or whatever. And so the more I think people get comfortable with it and ski up or ski down or climb up those learning curves, whatever, no one ever says which directions learning curves go.
Analogy you want to use.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with being a minimalist, but there's nothing wrong like enjoying the good stuff as well. So there's no good or bad way for playing.
Completely
that
agree.
Is true. I agree with that. Yes, there is. Especially these days where everybody is like wrong, bad, fun. Guys, if it's fun, let's calm down. Yeah. But for playing online and even for like playing in public, I think there are some cool tools that you can use. Like I think in some instances it's easier to use the VTTs to navigate the material than it is even a PDF. Even like the well-linked PDFs. There's some really cool I've seen some game masters really put them to use with like the internal links. They're not technically hyperlinks, but they're basically same concept of internally linked documents. Works really well on some of the VTT platforms. So that's some coolness. And then before we get to our special awesome guest, the Savage Worlds Effluvium is a new Ace product from Kindred Spirit Productions. And I think I'm pronouncing this right. I listened to their video. It was a pretty interesting video.
I told Chris he got to take this one.
Right? It's got a diphthong in it, and like yay diphthong pronunciation in English, whatever. But I think it's Rayland, and basically it's Rayland it's kind of entering into like a dying phase, and the setting it looks to be high fantasy. There are anthropomorphic races, which kind of ties in today's topic. Mm-hmm. And their drive-thru RPG link is not just for like the PDF of the book, but they've also thrown in maps, tokens. And there's like even a soundtrack with it too. So kind of high production value.
You can buy the PDF on drive-thru, but there's also a special box you can buy at some other website.
Yeah, it's actually Game Crafter, which is actually a very cool site. So yeah, they're doing the box set. I believe it is thegamecrafter.com.
Yeah, so the games. So those of you aren't in the know, like a lot of people who do either small batch board games, or people who are like doing demo copies before they go to Kickstarter for board games, use a site like Game Crafter, because you can have like Fox and Fox's friend and my friend Brett, who we did Buccaneer with. He's over COVID and the year before, he was doing a board game. That was really kind of cool. I don't know if I can spoil what the name of it is, but he was like setting up a board game, and I helped him create some art for it, and we had it printed up with Game Crafter, just so he has like an actual copy of his board game, so he can
very, very cool
continue developing it. So yeah, they're pretty cool. And I think is it the Game Crafter people or also the people who bought Tabletop Events?
No, that's
Board Game Geek.
Yeah,
other board game company. Okay, cool. So yes, Game Crafter was the other company of the previous owners of Tabletop Events. I think that's right. Anyways, there's lots of what do you call it? Like incestuous weaving in the industry, gaming, as if it's a small industry. But I think that's right. I think Game Crafter was the same dude who used to own Tabletop Events. Anyways, so yeah, that's the rundown of the news, guys. A lot of cool VTT stuff going on. I do think that will persist after COVID, after even we're getting back to the table. Like we were just talking before, how like we are all either vaccinated or in the process of getting vaccinated. So yay, going back to real life.
Yeah. So everything we just talked about, if you go to peginc.com and just go to their news portion of the website, you'll find everything we just talked about.
So yeah, with that, I'm going to play a nice little interlude, and then we'll get to our big discussion with the creator of Big Apple Sewer Samurai. Boo. Boom. So yeah, that's all. We have interlude music, people. We are right. Special.
So we want to welcome Alb to the show.
Happy to be here.
So tell us, sir, how did you get into gaming? What's your gaming history? When was your first time? All that good stuff.
At 6 years old, in my parents' basement with my brother, playing Star Wars West End game D6 system. That was my introduction to role-playing games, like 30 years ago. It was very, very. I still have the book, and it's not in pristine condition, but I still have that book.
That's the way it needs to be played, right?
Yeah, well loved.
Yeah.
Like I used to be a book purist, where like don't write in books, don't mark up books. Books need to and then like for utility stuff like gaming, like buy the deluxe edition for the keeping, and buy the regular edition to just use it, like
mark it up.
Right, mark it up, use it, make sure it's it's well loved, well worn. And so here's a question about the old West End game.
Yep.
The my opinion on Star Wars, and I think of all the systems I've played it in, I mean, the West End D6 is kind of the one that I think most people put a lot of their time in.
Still the best in my opinion.
Yeah, so I'm with you on that. So that was the question. Then the second question is parties. I think it only works if everybody's a Jedi or nobody's a Jedi.
Well, the West End, I think the new version from FFG is much better at handling non-Jedis with Jedis, but everything else, like, yes, it's better to everybody plays a Jedi or nobody plays a Jedi. Unless I remember it was what was his name? Like I watched his videos so much I don't remember. He made a video about one of his game in Star Wars where everybody was supposed to play a Jedi, but he decided to play a non-Jedi and used his Munchkin power to just be the most powerful player around the table. That was so funny. He used every single piece of gear that couldn't be deflected or force pushed or anything, and he was the most powerful player character, and it was very fun. But yeah, usually unless you have that kind of player, you better have all Jedis or
take that, no Jedi.
Yeah, deflect this.
So how'd you come to Savage Worlds?
Actually, it was one of I have one of my friends who is not a minimalist, who's like the guy who has insane battle maps in 3D, and he made us play a game. He was our Deadlands game master, and he was happy to show us the new game that was Necessary Evil. So we all created super villains. I was Dr. Too Many, which was copycat, shape-shifting, duplicate master. Like you had the other players were happy killing my duplicates and keeping a tally of how much of my duplicates they killed. But it was a very fun game, and I realized that I very, very, very much liked the system, and I bought Rippers for myself too, and I made a long campaign in Rippers, and from that I decided I have like a collection of books for Savage World, and I decided to write for Savage World because it was the easiest way of channeling my creativity, and I had the swag guidelines are actually the most creator friendly of everything. So it was between like writing for D&D, where I basically lost the ownership of everything I wrote, and swag, where I kept everything. Everything was still my own after that. It was an easy choice, and I'm not making that for it's my side hustle. Like writing for Savage World is a side hustle for me. So
right, I love hearing that. And if people out there want to write their own material, I mean, swag is the way to go. I mean, Pinnacle makes it user friendly. We'll say, it's easy to do. Yep. Real quick before we get into Big Apple, I want to just say, Cy, don't even bring up anything about Necessary Evil.
We know Cy. He's one of our friends from Colorado.
I still have Necessary Evil trauma, and he knows what I'm talking about.
Like the curiosity is killing me. You know that.
Oh yeah. We'll just say that I've never almost rage quit before, and I did in a Necessary Evil game. Tore my character sheet into little pieces, and I almost rage quit.
I can understand that. Actually, I had the worst experiences I had as a player were in Marvel Saga. So I understand
Okay.
the one where you play cards. I don't know if you know that
Yeah.
system.
Yeah, I used to actually play Dragonlance Saga.
Yeah, Dragonlance Saga, same system, different setting. And what I disliked the most was you created your character at random, and that was like a big turnoff for me. But
Right.
I understand. Yeah, everything was random. Very, very weird. But I understand how you can have a love and hate relationship with a system or a setting. Like, I want to play that, but I had such a bad experience with it. And it's not necessarily the game master, it's not necessarily the player. Sometimes it's just a mix of everything, and like you can enjoy the game with the same group but with a different system. Like that happens.
Actually, what he just said, he still has the character sheet. One of the guys in the game, after I left that game session, took all the pieces, took it home, taped it together, and laminated it, and brought it back to me next game session. It's like, oh, you guys are jerks.
Yeah, it's hard to rile Fox up, but apparently there is a way to get under his skin. That's pretty fun. I love the concept of necessary evil.
Me too. I don't get me wrong. I don't dislike it. It was just that everything came together just to a boiling point, you know. So I still like it. I'm not the biggest fan of running superheroes. I think it's, in my opinion, it can be kind of difficult. But you know, do it the right way. You can.
I think Supers is hard because the medium is really, there's so many conceits that comic authors make that you can only make if you're writing the story versus playing it, right? And situations that have to happen, and where when you have players playing it, you kind of reveal how ridiculous some of the superhero concepts are.
Well, and I think just saying that brings us to the next logical question. So, Al, tell us a little bit about Big Apple Sewer Samurai. What's it all about?
I'm a child of the 80s, so I grew up watching Gargoyles, watching Cyber 6, watching Kid Video, watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and everything. So that's like a very personal universe for me. I have like 1,000 ideas for settings. I could, if I had all the time in the world, I could like write everything, but I wanted to focus my creativity in something I knew very well and something I knew people would like. So of course 80s 90s cartoons were a logical choice. I know someone tried to do a Kickstarter that looked like Big Apple Sewer Samurai a few years ago, and it didn't make the cut. But apart from that, I don't think there's any 80s or 90s cartoon like RPG out there. X-Men, Spider-Man. Yeah. The Tick is a little bit after my time, I think. And Transformers, G.I. Joe, Thundercats are a little bit earlier. So I'm like really Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Gargoyles, and Cyber 6 are like my trinity of shows I watched so much when I was younger. So
I used to watch James Bond Jr. that was on like before Gargoyles. It was not nearly as cool, but it was like the lead up show. I think so. No one ever remembers that one, but I'm like, yeah, James Bond Jr.
I think he was like the nephew of James Bond, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that, yeah. So these are the three main influences of I didn't like, and I wasn't a big fan of anime at that time, so all those Japanese shows, apart from Astro, which was slightly more like my style, I didn't watch a lot of anime, so it's like more Western animations that influenced me. And that's basically it. I wanted to write something, and everything was created organically from that idea. How can I make a setting about the cartoons of that era. What are the tropes that were prevalent? And I started with the idea of a company that went bankrupt, and like everything that company made became like dumped in the sewers in the underground, and those remnants of the corporation, either the evil CEOs or the experiments, like clashing over the who gets to have the spoils of that company. So that's basically the idea of the setting. I
loved the background. I thought the background was really intriguing and very interesting.
And what I wanted to do was not creating a hard, all-encompassing setting, because I wanted people to be able to use that framework to build their own game with their own favorite show. You can use my Big Apple Sewer Samurai to make a Gargoyles game. Like just use the elements that are fitting. Like there's a villain, which is the Oracle. He comes from the future and has the knowledge of the future, and he's basically a normal human, but he knows which pitfalls to not fall into, and he's basically David Xanatos. So you can use him as okay. David Xanatos, and just use the races that fit, like aliens, robots, gargoyles. There's a gargoyle race, so that helps. And they can just forget all about the setting. So that was important for me. The setting was not the most important part of the book. It's there. It's fun. You can play in any way you choose. There's no definitive answer for anything. So that villain doesn't have a clear end game. You can decide what his end game is and how do you want to play it. But you can also play Thundar the Barbarian using Big Apple Sewer Samurai. It's really very easy. You can just have fun with it, and that's what was important for me when I wrote it.
Yeah, I really like that. I like the fact that it's a toolbox with a setting attached.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that. I found that very cool.
Yeah, the toolbox approach is actually pretty solid. I think that's what we're doing with SWAT. Same thing. We're looking for a toolbox with settings. So, it's useful for more people than just, running the campaigns you put together. But tell me about the cover. Like, the cover is the first thing you see. I love your cover. For people at home, give us a description of what's going on the cover. Did you have this mission?
When I was more serious about making a game, I knew that I had to have a good cover. People judge books by their covers. I judge a book by their covers. If you have a cover that's interesting, that will draw my attention. And I discovered a subreddit called Hungry Artists, which is basically just artists available for commissions. I'm available for commissions here in my portfolio. And I met a guy called Brendo Saldana. I'll just link his art station. That's one sec. And he was very, very, very interesting. He had a very good, very talented guy. And I gave him a few rough outlines, like I want a trio of reptiles, like sending you his art station. I want a trio of reptiles. I want them to have two-handed weapons. I gave him a few examples of two-handed weapons with few... Sorry, got interrupted. One sec. No, okay, sorry. My wife just came by to grab something. And we worked it out together. I said I want them to have like a mix of modern and ancient China, Japan aesthetic, and that was the result. And I'm very, very satisfied with it.
That's a very, very cool cover.
And I I used his ideas as inspiration to create the pregens because each of the 3 reptiles are in the book as pregens as well, and they are known as the reptile Ronin. So that's that's about it. I haven't have a lot of work to do. The Brando is really the mastermind of this beast, and he deserves all the praises you can give him.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, well, one, it's great putting artists to work, but two, I do like that you've pulled this synergy out between the artist's conception and then working that into your game design. That's a pretty exciting, and that's pretty fresh, right? I mean, that's one of the issues with any kind of swag or even ace is all the way up is that art is very expensive, right? And like you can go overboard and spend twice as much as your book will ever make or ever we hope funding.
Twice? That's
or more, right?
More.
Exactly. And I think I've said this a million times, and I think I'll just keep repeating it. But I think the general conception in the industry is that people who buy RPG books get a price fixed in their head on what an RPG book should cost. Mm-hmm. And you look at what books looked like 10 years ago and 15 years ago and 20 years ago and 25 years ago, and then realize that, we've gone from a few black and white pieces of art to high quality paper that has to be, high definition paper that's slick and magazine-y, and then, pieces of art that are all, not just like even just colored, but like full color, full rendered, painting, whether it's digital or not, quality, and then multiple pieces per page, and the layout and design has gotten more graphic and art and cost intensive. And
I mean, just look at the layouts for a lot of the books and things that Carl does.
Yeah,
I mean, those are much more heavily graphic layouts than in years gone by.
Right, and obviously, like something that's like a print on demand or a PDF product. Well, great, you're not necessarily having to pay for like the printing cost of that, but still the production cost is not small. And
nope.
The art is whatever people will pay for it. And I mean, there's this whole non-fungible token thing going on now with art.
Oh my God, don't! The environmentalist in me is like terrified by the NFTs. It's terrible. Yeah, it's terrible.
Right, and a lot of it's crazy, and there's this weird speculation, and people are like, well, if Bitcoin and Dogecoin or Dogcoin or Doge or whatever, like, oh my God, if that goes big, then these things are going to go big, and they're going to be worth fortunes, and and ultimately, art is one of those weird markets where art is what anyone will agree to pay for it, and there are things that people will pay millions and tens of millions for, but it's scary. Right, and it's scary though as like a content creator thinking that like that's a hard thing to budget for, right? Because it's the book has to sell enough copies. You have to hope it sells enough copies to be able to refund you for paying for the art. Because I don't think artists should, and probably most artists aren't going to work on spec. Like hey, I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for some art today.
Right.
And by Tuesday, I mean in 2 years when this actually goes to production and gets printed, and I actually get some cash for it.
And the problem is the artists are usually very, very underpaid as well. Like the time and effort they make into these artworks is amazing. I mean, I had this image. It was a bargain. Like if I consider how many hours Brando put into it and how much I paid him a lot less than I would have paid someone by the hour. It's amazing how much artists are giving away, even though they cost a lot. It's not cheap, but considering the time it takes to create one artwork of that quality, it's normal that you have to pay that much.
Yeah. So it's good on you for like. That's like the cool thing about kind of swag is that it runs the gamut from people who've used strictly stock art. and then all the way up to mixes of stock art and customized art. And the I do agree with your choice to do a custom cover. But I mean, I've
I usually go with a custom cover and stock art in the inside. So that's like a good compromise.
Yeah, we did. We basically did the same thing with Buccaneer.
Right, because I mean, ultimately, you kind of want to make sure that there are some great cover-worthy pieces that are by the usual suspects out there, like Dean Spencer and Rick Hershey and the guys who kind of cater to the RPG self-publisher. But like when I go on like the D&D Guild and see that like, oh yeah, that Dean Spencer piece, I've seen that on 14 different products. To me, that even if the piece is gorgeous, I don't know your IP, right? Like your brand, the brand of who actually used it. Whereas when you do at least a custom cover, at least you own people's memory of your book, right? Like if it's your cover.
That's actually a problem because since I self-published, I enjoy watching those covers a lot less because I know where they come from now.
Right, exactly, yeah. Very true.
Right. So it's kind of like your face, right? Like you want to have a unique face so people remember you and not, so generic or so overused where, is that the really great book or was it the other one? And I get it. I mean, if you're self-publishing and it's your first attempt and you're just going to put out a little module or whatever, people I don't have hundreds of dollars to pay for art and this probably won't sell hundreds of dollars worth of stuff to make it worth it. But for a project like this, I think it's great that you actually went through and got your cover.
I saw Big Apple Sewer Samurai as an investment, or writing for me is a joy. It's like a way to keep sane in these times, and I wanted to have something I was proud of. So I'm a lucky one. I didn't have to. I have my real job. This is just like a side hustle, as I said, and that was like just a project for me, by me. And if I lost money, I wouldn't be on the street. But I'm lucky in that aspect because I know some people are professional writers and that's their main job. And that was actually something that I was conscious about because I wanted to sell this. I didn't know what was its value. Like you said, people have a definitive value of what they are willing to pay, and I didn't have to say, oh, I have to cover that cost or that cost. It was just like I want to give that to the world, but I don't want to undercut other creators as well because I want people to pay what it's worth, so people will know that that kind of work is worth that kind of money. So I spent a lot of times looking at similar products and try to find what was the perfect price for this. So
cool. So I've got a trio of questions that I wanted to ask you. So I'll throw them to you one at a time. First one, I wanted to kind of have you talk a little bit about. One of the things that struck me when I first started reading it is character creation. You tweaked it just a little bit. So tell us a little bit about. So if I want to create, a squirrel, a kung fu.
But the squirrel is one of the available package.
All right. So how is the character creation different than
it was first of all, it was obvious for me that I had to +2 as a racial balance wasn't enough. I had to put it larger because those characters in TMNT, Gargoyles, or Cyber 6 are more powerful than your average novice character. But I wanted humans to be still human, so I went with the logic of, well, if a human starts at season, like he's more experienced, that's 4 advances worth, so it's +8, +10. So those characters are the equivalent of seasoned characters. That was my benchmark, how I decided to balance them. And every race is balanced with that logic in mind. But like you said, mutant animal, it's such a broad concept. I wanted to be able to give some creativity back at the players. So you have your basic race, which has a few abilities, but you also have a pool of points and custom points that you can decide where you want to invest them. So let's say you want to be a mutant bear, which is going to be in the next book I'm doing, but let's say you want to be a mutant bear. Well, you use the mutant animal basic race and you buy, and you buy the abilities you think with those points that a mutant bear will have. So he's tougher, stronger, he has claws, bite abilities, and probably is intimidating. So you create your own race with the guidelines, and you have, I think, 3 races that are built in that way. You have your mutant animal, your alien, or your nocturnal, which is vampire, gargoyles, and all those creatures that live in the night. So you can use either one of the available package. Like you said, you don't have to create your own squirrel. You can be a mutant squirrel if you want right off the book. You have all the abilities already calculated for you. But if you want to be a were raven, not a were raven, just a mutant raven, but you can create your own raven and it'll be balanced that way.
Excellent.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
No, I do like that balancing humans by giving them 4 advances, and it's just kind of a very elegant solution to an issue, right? It's right. You don't have to make superhumans; you really just give them the advances, and so they're and that kind of fits with most of the comics too, right? Like the humans in those shows.
You want the other characters and the non-humans to be bigger than life.
Yep.
I mean, that's the whole thing with them. They
Raven. And that's it. And usually the humans that are part of their team are more experienced, or they are aware of the supernatural, so they are trained to. They're not novice anymore.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm going to put question 2 and 3 together. I love that picture. That is one of my favorite pictures.
That's a stock art as well. So
I love that though. I think that is that. When I saw that, I'm like, ooh, I could play that character.
For those at home, there's it's a samurai duck, which is just fantastic.
He's awesome. So for myself, someone who's trying to create and trying to be a Savage Worlds creator and writer, I have 2 things that always interest me. Mm-hmm. One is how do you come up with setting rules, or what setting rules do you use? And then what special edges did you come up with, and how did you come up with those edges?
Let's start with setting rules first. I had 2 images in my mind when I wanted to create the setting rules. One was the second Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. There's a scene where the turtles are fighting against I was going to say the hand, wrong, ninjas, against the foot in a toy store. And they are fighting with everything except their weapon. They are fighting with the toys, they are fighting with the walls themselves, but they're never ever using their weapons, or maybe once or twice. And in the other image I had was in the X-Men animated series. You had Wolverine. Wolverine has adamantium claws, but he almost never uses them. He punches, he tricks others. So in these universes, in this cartoon world, violence is not really the option A. They uses everything but their weapon usually. So it was important for me to create setting rules that would reflect that. And Savage World already has a rule, which are tests that reflected that a lot. Like you don't have to attack to be useful. You can support your teammates. You can test so your enemy is all vulnerable or distracted. So every single rule, or not every, but a lot of setting rules, a lot of edges are built with that in mind. Even races are built with that in mind. You have many packages that have bonuses for tests or support and everything, because that's what I wanted people to do, not necessarily attacking with their weapons, but using tests and support to recreate that mayhem. So that was what was important for me. And the other thing that was important was improvised weapons. You have so many times in these cartoon shows that they are using improvised weapons instead of fighting with their weapons. There's even one character, one of the major Teenage Mutant Ninja characters, Casey Jones, who is basically always fighting with improvised weapons, never fighting with a real weapon. So I wanted to have a rule that was specifically tailored to make improvised weapons good for everyone. It's always useful to use improvised weapons if you can. And it's never an hindrance to pick up an improvised weapon and use it. You never have to use an action to pick up an improvised weapon, because even if you're intercepted, even if you intercept someone, it was very, very important, because that's what these characters do in these shows. So that's the logic. And people are using puns every time, so there's a rule for puns. One thing I drew inspiration from Necessary Evil, from one of the setting rules, because that's the inevitable comeback. Because they usually come back, but as opposed to superheroes who just get resurrected and come back, when someone dies in a cartoon show, it usually has lasting impact. They come back, yes, but not exactly as they were. Maybe they're cyborgs, maybe they're undead, maybe it's a clone, maybe it's a twin. Right. So that was the logic behind the inevitable combat. You come back, you have a good chance of coming back, but you're not coming back as you were. So you have to pick a card to decide how you come back.
Yeah, I loved that. I thought that was really cool. That was a really cool idea.
So that's where I had my ideas. I basically used the images I had in my head of what a combat and how people interact in these cartoons, and I just designed rules to make the players to encourage the players to use the same tactics. They don't have to, but it's just a good tactic now an even better tactic now to use tests, because they have bonuses and you have plenty of ways to abuse tests if you know what you're doing.
Right. Yeah, and that all comes through very much so in the book as you're reading through the book. Go out and pick it up. I can't recommend it enough. I think it would be great even for just one shots.
Yep. There's a 4 adventures that are not that complex, but you can just pick them up, do a con with the pre-gens, and it works. I think it works good. I hope it works good.
Yeah, I was actually really thinking about, we do something, my game group, we do something we call Camp Con, where we actually go camping for 4 days. And we always say that we're going to role play, and then we never do. We just sit around and talk. But I think I might bring this up with me, and just one of the 4 pre-written, adventures, and maybe try to, because you can do it in probably 4 hours, Yep. I think I'm going to do that and run something for these guys.
And you had a second question, but I don't remember it. It was the edges. Oh, that.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
That's a little more complex, because one of the first homebrew conversions I tried to do was Savage L5R, and something that bothered me a lot when I was doing that conversion was. One thing that's cool with L5R, Legend of the Five Rings, is the Swordsman Schools, and how you grow as as a swordman with a specific fighting technique, and like you didn't have that in Savage World. Like you everything is not interconnected, or at the very most you have one edge and you have its improved version. I think the most complex edge tree is ambidextrous, two-fisted, and two-gun kid. That's like the most complex you can have. And I wanted to create something that would have this sense of progression, like your character is going better. And I'm so glad my book went out before Savage Pathfinders, because they're basically doing the same thing. And at least I can say that I wasn't influenced by them, because my book came out before Savage Pathfinder.
Right. You can say I was first.
I was first. So you have those style edges. Like you take a style. I have to make sure I don't spoil upcoming styles, because I'll have a new book which will introduce new styles. So you have the Yojimbo style, which is basically protecting people. So you have abilities that you protect your teammates, and you have the Shinobi style, ninja and everything, the Lawman style, the Street Fighter style. So all these styles are 4 edges, which can be taken in any order, but only once per rank. So you have 4 edges. You can take one at novice, seasoned, vétéran, héroïque, and you have the final one, the ultimate one, which can only be taken at legendary when you have the other 4. So it's not exactly the class edges from Savage Pathfinder, but it's pretty darn close.
Similar, yeah. It's actually a very cool way to do it.
And so you can either build your character as you want, or you can aim to fit your character into one of those styles. And each style edge has different other requirements. So usually when you aim for a style edge tree, you have to very focus on those requirements. You don't have much room to grow outside those style edges, but you can still do everything else, and those are just edges. They're about as powerful as a normal edge, so they're not. You don't miss out so much if you don't invest in them. So that was the logic. And the other edges I included in my book was power edges, and I had the same logic behind them. So I wanted to create, instead of recreating arcane backgrounds, I wanted to use those the arcane backgrounds in the core book and just adding edges to steer them in the direction I wanted. So you have like the magic in Big Apple Sewer Samurai is basically controlling the probabilities and alternate dimensions. So you want to have fireball, you basically just go take fire out in a fire dimension and throw it at people. And you want to control to deflect arrows, so you basically just take luck in an alternate dimension and you're getting more lucky. So all those edges are just ways of making the arcane background magic more like this. So if you start as a baseline and you have luck control, which allows you to, your powers are basically explainable by luck. A piano fall on your enemy that deals 3d6 damage, but it's still a blast power, but that's explainable by luck. You have a power that you can use PowerPoint modifiers just by taking more time to cast, because you first open a rift, you take the alternate reality you want to bring, and that just takes more time. So it's like a way, instead of recreating that arcane background, you just make it so people are interested in playing that arcane background the way you want them to play, but they don't have to.
And that's really interesting is in the fact that when the setting rules steer people towards playing in the tropes that you want them to experience, right? And so that's I see our arguments online. People are like, there's only one right way or one wrong way to do whatever. Well, it's like, well, no. There's lots of ways of doing it, because there's lots of ways that these things play out. Like if you want more humorous, or you want to recapture, the feeling of what Gargoyles was like, or what Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was like, if the mechanics match that, then you have this cohesive experience where the game you're playing really does bring back those memories. And
exactly.
We've got your table of contents. I'll throw the table of contents up. We talked a little bit before about layout and design, so people who are on our video stream can see that. So it looks great. Is there anything else in the book? Like it's over 60 pages, and it's only $7 on DriveThruRPG. So you're getting pretty good bang for your buck. It looks like you said 4 different Savage Tales are included. So if people pick up the PDF, you have at least 4 Savage Tales that you can run them through. And
pre-gens. I love that.
That's how right. The ability to just like, let's play. Here you go. Pick a pre-gen.
And that's what I want to take this to CampCon, because I can give them all the pre-gens and run one of the Savage Tales, and there we go.
So you've talked a little bit about Death and Inevitable Turn. What's a crossover?
One of the thing about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle is the kitchen sink approach. Like throw everything at a wall and see what sticks. And over the years, they added a lot of stuff, including a multiverse, and many cartoons have that approach as well. Like they don't have necessarily a cohesive, well thought out universe in advance. They just made things up as they go, and I wanted to allow to like just give a glimpse of how to introduce characters from another universe into Big Apple Sewer Samurai, because portals to another universe are important in the setting. And let's say a player wanted to play, let's say, a cowboy from Deadlands, and cowboy from Deadlands steps into a portal, ends up in New York in today, and they want to play that character. Well, in that setting rule, I say, well, there's a race for that. It's fish out of water, and you can use instead of using a human, you can use that race and do so. And if you can even introduce a glitterboard pilot into your game if you want, and just to explain why they can't have their glitterboard, just say they can use it once in their introduction, and then it breaks down. So it's still just a human with a hunk of metal, useless metal. But so that was the idea. It's that setting rule is more about how to introduce characters from other universes. You can 100% actually you play a one-hit rap star who sings about your group during the final battle. That's actually supported in the rules. You can use support roles, performance roles to give bonuses to your teammates, and there's ways to improve your the other characters that way. So it might be a joke, but you can definitely play that character if you want.
Yeah, well, and so you've got, I mean, this is a pretty complete project, right? I mean, like you've got archetypes already built in. You've got 4 different adventures to run. You've built tools that are evocative of the settings you want people to remember from the 80s and 90s. And then the cool thing is we were talking a little bit before. We already thrown up the image. I'll throw it up again though. But you already have the next addition to this, right? So tell us about
companion. Yeah.
One of the thing I'm pretty new to this, so I was trying marketing stuff, and one of the thing I knew I had to have a certain amount of sales to not lose money, so I wanted to give incentives to people to buy my book, and I said if I have 250 sales, I'll make a companion book, which is basically like an expansion book with more options. And within a month, it was a done deal. So that forced my hand, and I decided to. I spoke a lot with my friend, who is my usual game master, because I have in every group there's always a guy that mostly GM, and that was my my game master, and he was very interested in helping me in that setting. So we had a brainstorm session, and one of the things that I took from this brainstorm session was the importance of growing the setting. And I wanted to explore another city. You have when that company T-Tech went bankrupt, you understand what happened in New York, but that's a megacorp, so it had presence in a lot of places in the world, and I wanted to show what happened in other cities, and I also wanted to go a little bit darker because it's very, very humorous, it's cartoonish, but there's a lot of cartoons and source material from the 80s and 90s that are not that child friendly. I'm thinking Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, G.I. Joe. Even G.I. Joe is a more mature themes, and you have a lot of action movies from that time, Delta Green, and everything that are more mature. And I wanted to show a more mature side of Big Apple Sewer Samurai. So the companion book would be called After Dark, and you can see in the image what appears to be deep ones. So fish monstrosities, and it will have basically the same outlook with a description of what's happening in Houston instead of New York, with new organizations, or how the existing organizations are doing in Houston instead of New York, and you have more emphasis on the more horror themes. So you have very bad mutants, which are the fish monstrosities here, more hellish alternate dimensions and the like. So it still can be played as cartoonish as you want. It offers more options, more packages. Like you can have a bear, or there'll be more races, more style edges, more gear, and everything. But I also wanted to offer more setting rules that would tweak a little bit more into mature territory. Like they're still cartoon bears in the world, but what would happen if you take it a little bit more seriously? So basically.
Yeah, you don't want to mess with that, Yogi.
Nope.
Hey, boo boo.
Yeah, bear with a shotgun.
And that artwork is not from the same artists, so I can give you it's Leon Simonetti. I don't know what I have with Brazilian-based artists, but
oh, it's great art though. I mean, super evocative. I love it. Let's see. Oh, we got it. Here we go. Yes. So in the comments, we'll have the art station for Leon Simonetti. Let's see. Copy. Boom.
So do you have? I know creators hate this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you have any idea of when it might be coming out?
When it's going to be ready?
I like that answer.
Like I said, that was one of the. I had more presence, and my timeline went a little bit faster than what I was expecting because of the lockdown and everything.
Right.
But now I'm going back into my real job, and I know I won't have as much time as I had. So I'm very, very bad at focusing at a single project. I have 2 or 3 projects going on in my head at the same time.
Oh, I know all about that.
I'm also working with Black Book edition to have that Big Apple Sewer Samurai translated, because they're working right now at their own swag license, because since swag is only for English-based books, I cannot just translate it because I speak French. That's my native language. So it's translating. I can translate it myself, but I can't publish it right now because I need Black Book editions approval before I can. So I'm working with them to get that approval. So I have like too many projects at the same time, so I can't make any promises as to when it is going to be ready.
Something to look forward to.
Promises are dangerous in this business, so
yeah, that just gives people something to look forward to.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be ready when it's going to be ready.
Yeah.
And then you've given us a preview of another project you're working on, Wild Hunt. Tell us a little about what this is.
Basically, I just love experimental RPGs. I have a large digital and print collection of zines, which are basically like minimalist RPGs with a few rules and just awesome ideas. And I wanted to try something a little bit more experimental myself, but I'm more of a writer than a game designer. Designing a whole game, it wasn't really for me, at least not right now. So I had an idea a while back about writing a podcast, a fantasy podcast. It's like, imagine a guy who's talking about how to hunt animals and fantasy animals, how to hunt giants, dragons, and everything. So it's more like a theme monster manual. You have 10 pages long. Charlie Hawk is explaining to you how to beat the different kinds of giants there is in the world. So you have all the stats for giants, new magical items, new potions you can use, new gear, and like just tricks to enhance your game as a game master. So tactics your giant can use against your players, which will make it a little bit different, or tactics as a player you can use against giants to make it more enjoyable for everyone. So it's again a toolbook, a monster manual, a bestiary, and but it's also tips and tricks for the players and GMs to better role play fighting against these characters and fighting as these characters.
So it would be almost like reading a transcript of a podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that. It's very nice.
And actually, one of the first magical items I included was the pod crystals, which is basically crystals you can magically record stuff into, and people can put them in their ears and listen to what you said. So even in universe that these podcasts exist.
Nice.
That's fantastic. So is that still in development? Is that ready?
Well, I'm in design and layout and editing, so that's going to take a while because I usually change focus each week. So maybe that'll be done in month, maybe it'll be done next year, maybe it will never get done. But
no, that's fantastic. So let's see, to wrap us up, man, we appreciate you coming on the show. Let's give everybody the link one more time.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It is Big Apple Sewer Samurai, over 60 pages of content, $7. There are 30 new edges, 6 new character races, 25 unique variations, and guidelines to create your own. Stat blocks for over a dozen adversaries, 4 one-page Savage adventures, 8 iconic pre-generated characters. So whether you want to do kung fu tortoises, motorcycle riding rodents, crime fighting half sharks, that's my favorite, or cybernetic felines with an affinity for pizza, Big Apple Sewer Samurai can handle them all. Thanks for joining us, Al. We appreciate you. Anywhere
thank you for having me.
Besides Drive for RPG, anything else you want to plug?
Me?
Yeah. Twitter, YouTube. Do you have a website?
You can like my Facebook page, The Raven and the Albatross, and you'll have the most recent news about what I'm working on, but no promises as to when they'll be ready.
That's the way to go. Well, congratulations on having a best seller Electrum swag product on.
I'm actually very, very close to gold right now.
Oh, nice.
All right, people, get out there and get them to gold.
Right, we will throw the link into the chat one more time just to make sure that we get you guys to gold. So yeah, guys, pick up Big Apple Super Samurai. It is a very complete, very cool, compelling project. Alb's obviously an amazing dude, and we look forward to what you do next in the Savage Worlds community. Out, man, we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Wildcards, thanks for listening, and see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 more weeks, guys. Take it easy.